The international terminal pulsed with life, a restless river of people flowing in every direction. Wheels of suitcases clattered over shiny tiles, bits of foreign languages swirled together in the air, and the metallic voice of the PA system occasionally cut through it all with boarding calls. Bright lights reflected off glass walls, and somewhere in the distance, a child's laughter mixed with the steady hum of travel. Sophie Bennett adjusted the strap of her camera bag across her shoulder, feeling the weight dig into her collarbone. It wasn't just any bag. It was her livelihood, the thing that had been with her through countless airports, city streets, and dusty back roads. At 7 months pregnant, even walking across the terminal felt like running a small race, but slowing down wasn't in her nature. She thrived on movement, on catching those brief moments that told entire stories. Her sneakers tapped across the floor as she passed a row of gates, her mind already drifting to the assignment ahead. That's when it happened. A sharp bark ripped through the noise, so loud, so sudden, it froze her mid-step. The sound didn't just demand attention, it commanded it. Her hand flew to her belly before her mind even caught up, a protective instinct, rooted deeper than thought. 20 feet ahead, a German shepherd stood frozen, his stance rigid, muscles tight as wire. His ears pricked forward, his gaze locked so completely on Sophie that it felt like the world around them had fallen away. The dog's handler, a tall man in airport security uniform, had both hands clamped on the leash, his knuckles white from the grip. The shepherd, Shadow, didn't lunge. He didn't back down either. A low growl rolled from his chest, deep enough that Sophie felt it in her bones. Her pulse quickened. She had no idea why the animal was staring at her like that, but something about the sharp intensity of his eyes sent a prickling sensation crawling up her arms. Around her, the tide of travelers slowed. Curious faces turned, whispers floated through the air, growing in number. Sophie stepped back, her sneakers squeaking slightly against the tile. Shadow didn't move. His eyes followed her like a spotlight that refused to blink. Ethan Cole, Shadow's handler, knew the dog better than anyone. Shadow didn't bark without reason. Every reaction he gave was deliberate, trained over years to detect narcotics, explosives, and concealed weapons. But this wasn't the stiff-tailed alert of finding something illegal. No, this was something else. Something Ethan had never seen in the dog before. The growing crowd began to feel like a wall pressing in. Phones appeared in hands, their cameras angled discreetly toward Sophie. A supervisor in a navy blazer approached, face serious but calm. "Ma'am, would you mind stepping with us for a quick check?" His voice carried a weight that didn't sound like a request. Sophie's brows knit together, her lips parting slightly. The heat of so many eyes made the air feel heavy. I don't understand," she stammered, her voice small against the background noise. Her gaze darted between the supervisor and the dog that still hadn't broken its stare. Her hands gripped the strap of her camera bag like it was a shield. "I haven't done anything, I swear." There was a flicker in her eyes. Fear, the kind that doesn't shout, but grows quietly in the pit of your stomach. Ethan saw it. He also saw that Shadow still hadn't budged, his growl vibrating like an unspoken warning. Around them, the whispers turned into murmured theories passed from one onlooker to another. Ethan's jaw tightened. She was pregnant. Stress could be dangerous. But ignoring Shadow wasn't an option. That dog had never been wrong. "Let's just head to a private screening." "Room," he said, his voice softer now. "It'll be quieter there." Sophie hesitated, then gave a small nod. 2 officers fell in step beside her as they moved down the corridor. Shadow's gaze tracked her every step until the door closed behind them. Inside, the private room felt worlds away from the terminal's chaos. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant. A metal table stood in the center, inspection tools neatly arranged on a nearby counter. Officers began going through Sophie's things: camera lenses, memory, cards, clothes, every pocket, every zipper. A scanner passed over her suitcase. Nothing. No weapons, no contraband, no reason for any of this. Outside, Shadow paced, his claws clicking against the tile in a restless loop. Every so often, a whine slipped through the door, followed by the scrape of paws against the floor. Sophie sat on the edge of the table, her chest rising and falling too fast. A female officer with a tablet approached. "Any medical conditions we should know about?" "I'm 7 months pregnant," Sophie replied, her voice hesitant, as if that alone couldn't be the answer they were looking for. The officer nodded, making a note. And then, everything shifted. Sophie's breath caught. A sharp, raw groan escaped her throat as she doubled over, hands clamping to her belly. Her camera strap slid from her shoulder and hit the floor with a dull thud. Ethan heard the sound from the hallway and was in the room within seconds. Sophie's skin was pale, her forehead damp with sweat, and another wave of pain had her arms trembling. This wasn't nerves. This was something far worse. "Get medical down here now," Ethan ordered. 2 paramedics rushed in, equipment spilling from their bags. A monitor clipped to Sophie's finger, a stethoscope pressed to her chest. "Blood pressure erratic, heartbeat unstable," one muttered. "Could be premature labor." But his tone carried uncertainty. Sophie shook her head, rapidly, breathless. "It's too soon! Please help me!" Outside, Shadow's whines rose into urgent, pleading barks. His claws scraped at the door, sharp and desperate. "She needs to be moved," the lead paramedic said firmly. They prepared a stretcher, but before moving her, the paramedic paused, placing his hands gently on her abdomen. His brow furrowed, almost immediately. "This isn't just early labor," he said quietly. "She's got an internal rupture. If we don't operate immediately—" He didn't finish, but the weight of the words hung in the air. Ethan's chest tightened. Shadow hadn't been warning them about explosives or weapons. He had been warning them about this. Sophie's trembling hand reached out. "Please, save my baby." The paramedic nodded once. "We move now." The room exploded into action. Equipment was packed, the stretcher secured, and the officers cleared a path. Ethan stayed close, his mind racing. Shadow trotted beside the stretcher, head low, ears pinned back, his eyes locked on Sophie. His usual steady stride was gone, replaced by a restless urgency, every muscle taut. They reached the sliding glass doors, and the rush of humid air hit them. The ambulance waited at the curb, back doors open, ready. Sophie turned her head, her face pale and damp with sweat. She found Shadow in the corner of her blurred vision. With what strength she had left, she whispered, "Thank you." It was barely audible, over the noise, but Ethan heard it. So did Shadow, whose tail gave the smallest, almost imperceptible wag. The paramedics lifted her into the ambulance in one smooth motion. Ethan stepped back, his chest tight, watching as they connected IV lines and adjusted oxygen. The door slammed shut, the siren flared to life, and the vehicle sped away, weaving into traffic. Ethan stood there a moment longer, Shadow by his side. The thought pressed in like a cold hand. Without this dog, she and her baby would never have made it out of the terminal alive. The hospital waiting area was a world apart from the frantic rush of the airport. The steady hum of fluorescent lights and the faint antiseptic smell pressed in on Ethan as he sat on a metal bench just outside the emergency room. Shadow lay at his feet, chin resting on his paws, but Ethan could feel the tension still coiled in the dog's body. Every time the automatic doors hissed open, Shadow's ears twitched, his head lifting as if expecting someone familiar to appear. Hours crawled by. Ethan found himself glancing at the clock over Andover, surprised each time at how little the Nans had moved. The adrenaline that had carried him here had faded, replaced by a slow, heavy ache in his chest. His mind kept replaying it. Shadow's sudden bark in the terminal, the unwavering stare, the low growl that had unsettled even him. If he'd dismissed it, if he chalked it up to a fluke, he didn't want to finish that thought. A nurse passed through the waiting room, and Shadow's head shot up, eyes following her until she disappeared down the hall. When the quiet settled again, Ethan reached down, letting his fingers run over the thick fur at the back of the dog's neck. "You knew," he murmured almost to himself. "You knew before any of us." Shadow didn't move, but his steady presence was grounding, a reminder that sometimes trust had to extend beyond what could be explained. Ethan took a slow breath, leaning back against the cool wall. Somewhere behind those closed ER doors, Sophie's life and the life of her child hung in the balance, and all they could do now was wait. When the ER doors finally opened, Ethan was on his feet before he even realized he'd moved. A man in scrubs stepped out, mid-50s, glasses perched low on his nose, his expression unreadable. For one suspended moment, Ethan's chest tightened, bracing for the words he feared most. Then the doctor's face softened into the faintest of smiles. "She's alive," he said. "The baby's alive too. They're both stable." Ethan exhaled hard, realizing only then how long he'd been holding his breath. The doctor stepped closer. There was a rupture, internal bleeding that didn't show up in the initial scans. If she hadn't been treated exactly when she was, neither of them would have survived. Ethan's gaze dropped to Shadow, who was now sitting alert, eyes fixed on the doctor as if he understood every word. "I don't know how your dog knew," the doctor added, shaking his head slightly. "But he gave us the time we needed. He saved 2 lives today." The words landed heavy in Ethan's chest, not from their weight, but from their truth. He reached down, resting his hand on Shadow's back. The muscles there had finally eased, though the dog's eyes were still attentive, as if guarding vehement. For Ethan, it wasn't just another day on duty. It was proof that some instincts can't be trained, only trusted. The doctor gave a small nod, then disappeared back through the swinging doors, leaving Ethan and Shadow standing in the stillness. Ethan looked down at his partner, the corner of his mouth lifting. "Good work, Shadow," he murmured. The dog's tail tapped the floor once, quiet but sure. The minutes after the doctor left felt lighter, though the quiet still carried a hum of exhaustion. Ethan had just settled back onto the bench when a nurse appeared at this side. She held a small, folded piece of paper between her fingers. "She asked me to give you this," the nurse said, her tone soft. Ethan took the note, its edges slightly creased. The handwriting inside was hurried. The ink smudged in one corner, but the words were clear. "Tell the dog he's my angel." Ethan felt a knot rise in his throat. He read the line again, slower this time, letting the weight of it settle. Shadow, lying beside him, tilted his head as if sensing the shift in Ethan's breathing. He reached down, scratching lightly behind the dog's ear. "Did you hear that, partner? You're someone's angel now." Shadow blinked, then leaned subtly against Ethan's leg, his warmth grounding the moment in something simple and pure. Ethan thought about everything that had happened. The bark that stopped a pregnant woman in her tracks, their restless pacing outside a closed door. The way this dog had felt something no human in that terminal could. Some connections, he realized, defy explanation. They simply exist. Strong, unshakable, and sometimes life-saving. Outside, the evening sky had begun to dim, painting the hospital entrance in shades of gold and blue. Ethan stood, giving Shadow's leash a gentle tug. "Come on, Angel," he said quietly.